Hey y'all, it's Steve, Hobo with Wood, and this is part 2, or my second video on my Comgrow Comgo Z1. Say that 10 times, real fast. Comgrow Comgo Z1. So I did the assembly video the other day, and this is now my first test, my first engravings, and in my first attempt at a real project with the Z1. So let's cross our fingers, dive in here, and see what happens. The first project I'm going to try and tackle is going to be a laser cut desk clock. So let's jump into Google and let's see what we can find that's a doable project. And those are some pretty elaborate things which are not undoable or not doable. Undoable? Not doable? I don't know. But this is really simple. Something that we can do with an average diode, and I'm going to reverse engineer this design right here. We'll click on it. I don't know who you are, and I'm sorry for stealing your ideas, but I'm not stealing your ideas because I'm going to reverse engineer this from scratch. It's a pretty simple design and easy to create, and with the magic of YouTube, we are going to go from looking at this to... So now I've already reverse engineered this to create a design that's going to be easy to duplicate and replicate. And I'm going to use a piece of material that I bought from a hobby shop locally that's a really nice piece of lumber. And I say lumber because this is not some cheap plywood. This is leopard wood hardwood. First time working with this, so fingers crossed that it's going to work out great. It's going to be beautiful piece of wood if it turns out. Really is super. I mean, leopard wood's nice looking stuff, but it's already been cut to dimensions. I'm going to have to make this a little bit shorter. It is already 5 inches wide, 1/8 inch thick. It's about 24 inches long, and this particular project is not quite 24 long, but it's too long for the diode, which I've got to show you how we're going to make that work. But we're going to make that work, and cross our fingers that we have a really nice project when we're done. The 5 inches is going to be exactly the width of the project, and this is cut precise, so I don't have to worry about having to cut the perimeter. It's long. My work bed is 400 millimeters by 400 millimeters. So if I scroll out here a little bit, you can see this is way beyond the work bed. But the only cuts that I need to do are just where they're positioned on that toolpath. I've only got to worry about my living hinges and the face of the clock. So this would normally be a cut path, but I don't need to cut it because it's already cut. So turn it to a toolpath and use cut selected shapes. So when I go to cut this out, I'll only select those, and when you look at preview, that's what's going to cut. So the size of the material or the overall size of the project is irrelevant. But how do you get this material positioned correctly? Well, I created a toolpath here that encompasses the entire width starting at the very end of the piece. So this is a corner and a corner of the actual wood. So how do I get that material set up properly? Well, I use my target over here and send it to the corner of the material, like so. Now the laser is going to move over to the end of that material, to that corner, and I'll do the same thing again with that the target feature. Send it down to this corner, and I know then about where to put that edge of the material. Once I've done that, it's really close to where I need it to be, but it's not going to be perfect. So then I select just that toolpath that starts at those two corners and extends beyond the cuts that I need to make, and I have that selected to frame, and now I will frame the entire piece. But now here is something that you may not be aware of. Like I'm using my Comgo Z1. The Comgo Z1 does not have a targeting or LED that doesn't that shows you where the laser is. So what you have to do is in your move section here, the move menu, you tell it to fire at 1%, and you go into your, is it in here in this settings? I always get these two not there. So go into the screwdriver. Yep, screwdriver and wrench. And right here in the middle is enable, because you may not even see this fire button. You have to enable laser fire button and enable the laser on when framing. So enable laser fire button and laser on when framing. Now once you enable both of those and tell it OK, you will have to exit LightBurn completely, go out of it, and then come back in it. And when you do, if you weren't seeing that, that's when you'll see your fire button. Tell it to fire at just 1%, because 1% power is not going to do anything to the surface of your material. But tell it 1%, and you've clicked it to fire when framing. So now if you watch, when I hit my frame button, I've selected that toolpath and I hit frame. Now it's going to frame that entire area, and you can see as it goes, you should be able to see it on the camera, but you'll see that laser is fired and moves right around the perimeter, and I can see that my wood is positioned exactly where I need it to be. So now, even though my material is going way past the ability of the laser bed, only cuts I need to do are right there, and I have framed them perfectly. So now I can select just those objects, check my preview, and there it is. There are my living hinges, and there is the face of the clock with the center hole I need cut. It's going to take 31 minutes to do on my diode if I've got the settings correct. This is my first time trying to cut this leopard wood, and I don't have a piece that I can use to do any test cuts on. So going from previous experience, I'm trying cuts and layers. I'm trying 10 millimeters a second at 90% power and 3 passes, I think. And that might be satisfactory. It might be too fast, but I've got my wood anchored. In fact, I'm going to put 2 more dogs on here and lock this other end down. So then if I need to, I can send it back out a second and third time. Let's move the laser out of the way. Laser. Now make sure those aren't going to be in the way. Hit frame one more time. Okay, that's good. So now I'm gonna change my clock face. I'm gonna get rid of those minute marks. Right now you see the DD, but when you look at the preview, didn't select anything, so let's select it all. Come on. When you look at the preview, those DDs change to the 1 through 12. And that's variable text. That's for a different video. But we just saved a whole minute. Not a big deal. But I think I'm going to like that look better for this particular design. I think. Do I even want this there? It's not going to be backlit other than just ambient light coming through. The numbers are going to be cut out. Do I even need any ticks at all? You know what? Let's just do away with the ticks completely. So hold my shift key. I'm just going to go around here and grab all those ticks and get rid of them all. And I just selected my toolpath, but that's irrelevant because it's just a toolpath that I no longer need. So delete. And I missed this little booger. Delete. That's going to be pretty clean. And this tiger wood has got such character that I really want to show off the wood anyway. So let's just do that. That's 29 and or 30 minutes. All right, let's tell it to start and cross our fingers. Oh. And I can already tell that is not getting through the material in 3 passes at that speed. So I'm going to stop it. And I'm going to change my speed to, we're going to change speed to 5 and make it 100% with 3 passes. Make sure everything is where she needs to be. Now this is what I like about having the limit switches on the Comgrow. I'm going to tell it to go home. And now I'm going to tell it to frame off of my toolpath again. And now that I feel good that everything is back where it was, I'll turn off my toolpath, or unselect it rather. Select just those cuts. Preview looks good. 59 minutes. So we just doubled our time. 59 minutes with the diode doing 5 millimeters a second and 100% power, or 300 millimeters a minute. I think that's how that comes out to. I don't do minutes, but let's give this a try. Fortunately, I can see right at the edge here if that's in fact getting through, and if not, we can make adjustments. So, start. And I believe that's going to make it. I can hear the grains popping I don't know how this leopard wood is going to do. Whenever you have those exotic wood grains, the grain tends to want to cut differently than the pulpwood, and you get some irregular cuts, some irregular burns. So this is a complete trial and error. Hopefully not a lot of error, but I can hear a lot of popping as these grains cut. So we'll let this cut and see what happens. lot of tension in this board. I'm not going to force this. I'm going to let it just do its thing and see if I can't get this to conform over time. It's not going to flex tonight. Not like I need it to. Ah, okay, yep. Snap, crackle, pop. Well, it was going to be pretty. Didn't quite get cut through. And that wood's just too brittle. Too brittle for a living hinge. And that really stinks, because that was going to be really pretty. Alright, we live and we learn. Well, today was a complete and total bust. Not really. We learned we don't want to try and do living hinges with leopard wood. But that was an entire day shot. So, what do you do? What do you do? So this was not a wasted video, because, and typical of my day, the cork just broke. Jameson Gold Reserve. If you know, you know. But it ain't gonna last long enough to worry about. We'll just push it in. And a little bit of cork ain't ever hurt nobody. But today was not a bust, because we learned some things. We learned we're not gonna do leopard wood. And if this was gonna be my first project with the Comgrow Comgo Z1 10-watt diode laser, but it was unsuccessful. But not as a result of the Comgrow, but just experimenting with new materials, and it didn't work. So, as Nick would say, Clinkies. Yeah. So the Comgo has got a lot of really nice features. The limit switches are the main reason I decided to use that to replace my previous diode. The Comgo Z1 got limit switches on your X and Y. So as you've seen, I homed it several times, went out and reframed it and started the job again. By having those limit switches and being able to send it to a known position, then duplicate those patterns. And even what I did though, if you watched, I would send it to home, frame it, and then start from the frame. I didn't come to home and just restart, because I wanted to duplicate. In order for me to replicate those same cuts every time in the same position, I wanted to start from the same position every time. So I'd home it, frame it, make sure I was right, and then start. You couldn't have done that with my previous laser. There was no way to know that you were going to get the exact same cuts. I just did those cuts, those initial cuts on the living hinge. They were started 3 different times. Once when they wasn't cutting deep enough, and then resent to start the job. And then I didn't have it quite framed just right on those last 6 inches of material. So I just cheated those lines down, resent it out, and reburnt those edges. And it unfortunately did not burn all the way through in spots on that leopard wood. But even if it had, it wasn't going to work. That was some stiff lumber. And then take a look at this. This is leopard wood. It was 1/8 inch thick, 5 inches wide, and 24 inches long. That one little piece of hardwood, when I bought it, it was $25. It's down to $22 now, but they're also oversold until after Christmas. But that was a $25 piece of wood that's just trashed. Nothing I can do with. So you live and you learn. These videos aren't cheap. The equipment's not cheap. And some days are better than others. But the one thing that I've seen people talk about, the biggest complaint with the Comgrow is, oh, but it doesn't have the little crosshair, the LED, the sight where you... Man, you don't need that. I showed you in his video, if you watched, if you didn't and you're seeing this now because you skipped around, go back. You can turn on your laser to fire at a very low power, and you use your actual laser for framing and centering to make sure you got your material where you want to. That's better than any crosshairs. And you can do that with any of the diodes if you go through that process of going into your screwdriver and wrench and turning those features on. And you got to remember, you can turn those on, but in order for them to be active, you have to close LightBurn and reopen it in order to be able to see that fire button. And set your value at 0.5% or 1%. That way you make no marks on your material and you're not in any danger of putting your eye out. So we did some really good tests initially with the inexpensive, what was it, Chinese whitewood or something they send with them. So we know it works, and it works really well, and you get really fine detail. But I was trying to do an elaborate project with some material that I'm not familiar with, and it bit me in the butt. So today's been a wash. We're topping it off, and we'll try again tomorrow. So until the next video, I'm Steve, Hobo with Wood, and I'm out.